Andy, have you had those weeks where it just feels like it should be Friday already? It should be the weekend. Kind of feel
Yeah,
that way right now. It's only
yeah.
Wednesday.
Dave, I'll tell you what, man. I had a great weekend. It was one of the more like calm and relaxing weekends I'd had in a while. And through about Sunday afternoon, like I was doing great. And then Sunday afternoon, you have sometimes just something pops up that you weren't expecting, and now all of a sudden you've got a whole lot of shit to deal with. And it's just that Dave. So I didn't sleep Sunday night, didn't sleep Monday night, tired, and your body starting to break down. When your body starts to break down, you start to feel like you're sick, but you're not sick. And it's here we are now. It's fucking Wednesday morning, Dave. I feel like it's Friday at 5 p.m. I just want to go back to bed and call it a week.
Yeah, I'm kind of there with you. So I'm kind of feel the same way.
You want to go to bed with me, or you're also tired?
Well, I mean, who doesn't,
I
Andy? I
mean,
mean,
I'm not. Hey, come on over, big guy. Come on over.
yeah. So all fun stuff. It's been quite a week. It just feels. I mean, the weather down here has been beautiful. It's been
Beautiful.
like 55 to 65. That's a
Yeah,
good. When the sun is out, those temperatures are great.
yeah.
Now, when it gets cloudy and a little windy, 55 becomes a lot colder. But I mean, that's a good sweet spot. I hope we don't jump past spring and go
Yeah.
right to summer. So I'm hoping to enjoy these days as long as we can. So.
As Natalie Merchant once sang, Dave, these are the days. Little 90s throwback for you. So, hey, all right. But
There
Dave,
you
we're not
go.
here to talk about the weather today or how tired and miserable we are. What are we here to talk about today?
Andy, I think we can probably start with I didn't really even know this was a thing, but maybe it's like a like you remember in the movie Ricky, with Will Ferrell and talking about the magic man. Now you see me, now you don't, and all this other stuff, and this illusions and distractions and such. I kind of feel like yesterday they released the JFK files to kind of distract everybody about, oh, we're going to release and finally tell you who shot JFK, uh, to distract from some of this political stuff. But let's just talk about the JFK files for a minute.
All right.
I didn't even know they were going to be released. It's not one of my top five things that I need to know in my life, type of thing. And yet it got released and like it didn't say shit. It didn't seem like it said anything. Yeah, the head is supposed to like go that way or something was one of the conclusions
Yeah.
of the report. Like it wasn't breaking news across the it didn't come into the nightly broadcast or anything like that. It's not if you go to the major websites, the news websites, it's not the lead story. Maybe because there isn't much of a conspiracy there where people think that there's a conspiracy. So,
There's a conspiracy, Dave. There's always a conspiracy. You know it, and they're just keeping it hidden from us. No, I think, it takes time to go through like the massive documents that got dumped. But I think it's a couple things. One, like, I mean, on a realistic standpoint, why weren't they released before, right? There's
yeah.
nothing in them, right? Like, why are we keeping things classified? There's a consistent problem with the government that, this stuff gets classified at too high a level for too long a period of time. Just be as transparent as possible. Share maximally, like as much as you possibly can. Share so American people know, oh, you're not keeping anything from me. Initial takes, suggest absolutely nothing has changed, right? Like you said, there was some basic information that came out, but nothing that was changing the current, beliefs of Lee Harvey Oswald acting alone, trying to kill the president, just like the Yahoo and Butler, PA, was trying to act alone to assassinate then candidate Trump. There's unhealthy people who do unhealthy, violent things. This is probably a nothing burger, but I mean, to President Trump's credit, like, yeah, like release the documents. Like, let's get this stuff out in the public and let the American people know that the government isn't hiding anything. That's a good thing. Transparency is a good thing. So I actually brace myself. I commend President Trump for releasing the JFK documents. All right.
But but you said something that will it quell any of these ultra like the conspiracy theorists at all?
Yeah.
I mean, like did yeah, yes, look, release the stuff that should be released. I mean, there's no point hiding it. I mean, it should be public record, right? The president of the United States was assassinated.
Yeah.
We should be able to see it, just like we see stuff about, Vietnam and decisions that went behind that, and so on and so forth. It's better to be transparent, but we've lived in this cesspool of this conspiracy since
Yeah.
literally since day one.
Yeah.
Jack, Ruby getting shot then, and or sorry, Ruby shooting Oswald and not really knowing this full story there, and then Ruby dying in prison. I think that's where he died, and it just seems like one thing after the other that just fueled and that's what we live in today. These things just fuel these conspiracies. And even if you want to be transparent, there's always going to be somebody out there. There's always going to be a group that, like, I refuse to believe that there is not 80,000 more pages or documents out there. So,
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, sorry.
and honestly, think about it, 80,000 worth of documents. One of those pages is agent so and so and I went to the diner and had lunch or something. Like it's some of it's like it sounds like every page is like ultra important,
Yeah,
but the reality is some of that is probably expense reports, invoices,
yeah,
statements of just whatever, you know. So
yeah, absolutely. And like you're right. I mean, the conspiracy theories, conspirators got to conspire, right? It's fun to it's fun. It's a whole industry of itself to sort of speculate like what happened here, right? Like who killed Jeffrey Epstein, right?
yeah.
The guy probably was hugely ashamed of what he'd done and what his future looked like and called it a day. But you've got people who think, the Clintons did it, Trump did it, so and so, like maybe. I mean, like maybe, I guess, but also maybe just killed himself, and that's it's fun to think of the what ifs and that maybe the rich and powerful or the government, are doing things behind the scenes to manipulate everything. And typically, especially when it comes to government conspiracies, it's just not there, right? Conspiracies are extremely difficult to keep hidden. Like it just takes one little thing to break the whole thing. So like the idea of FEMA camps and government plans to keep people in prisons, like there's almost certainly typically nothing to those things. When the government wants to do something really dangerous and reckless, they're doing it right in front of us. It's called Trump administration 2025, Doge, and everything else. Like it's happening in plain sight, right? You've got a president talking about a third term and all these other things. Like the mischief is happening right in front of us, and we're largely cheering it on, right? So it doesn't have to be a conspiracy or hidden. And most things, there's just nothing. There's nothing there. Things aren't as complicated and fantastic as we'd like them to be. Things are stupid, and bad people unfortunately do bad things, and JFK got eliminated.
Well, it's kind of one of those things too. It's like the UFO files, right?
Yeah,
Now that was actually interesting stuff. Like you showed some videos of things happening, but again, these largely huge conspiracies. Um, about alien races and all this other stuff. Look, I mean, we live in an age where anytime a kid's out at a party, they're getting videoed 24, like
yeah,
every minute, every second of that experience. They post it everywhere. You would think we would see more of aliens being uncovered, especially since they live just walking around with us like they did in V, which was one of Andy's
yeah.
favorite shows. So
Awesome. Hot, sexy aliens. Can't beat that.
hot, sexy aliens.
Going back to sort of government bungling, right, that creates conspiracies, the New Jersey drones incident, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Government bungling, like just be straight up with the people and tell us what you know up front. Don't make people have an opportunity. Don't give them an opportunity to think something's going on here, right? What's going on here? So it's manageable, and just sometimes the government isn't conspiring. The government's just stupid sometimes, and that leads to the JFK files being hidden for 60 years, and Biden not being able to talk about whatever the hell the UFO drones are hovering over New Jersey.
All right, so that was we'll see what happens over the JFK files. Let's see where that goes if anything does come out. Obviously, people were waiting for this. A lot of pages got released overnight. You would have thought that something would have been, if anything was really important in there, somebody may have found something. But we'll see. We'll see what happens coming forward. Well, that my bet is nothing happens. So, Andy, let's talk about the bumbling president and some of what has been happening lately. We forgot to cover on Monday. I don't know, we forgot. It was just so many other things to talk about. But the president came out over the weekend, and I guess on his ranting and revenge tour type of thing, we on Friday he went to the Department of Justice and railed against all those people who were prosecuting him and and threatening actions and talking about how as the Department of Injustice and all this other stuff. But the other part that came out over the weekend was Trump's insinuation that all of Biden's pardons for those on the House Unselect Committee, like God, that is awful. The House Unselect Committee, those pardons that Biden gave preemptively for that group are null and void, and Trump has rescinded them on the spot because they were used in auto pen.
Auto pen.
And Biden fully didn't appreciate what he was doing. Nobody gave him the full things. He was mentally impaired and made all these again lavish assertions. I couldn't believe it when I first saw it. I was like, but this is dictator level shit. I think somebody even posted that on Blue Sky. This is dictatorship, like this is what dictators try to do. So I thought that was fun.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, and it's been walked back since, right? His rant. I mean, again, like go to sleep, like sleep more, Donald Trump. Like take a nap, sleep more, get off of True Social. You know, if like you're talking to a 13-year-old kid, put down TikTok, kid, right? Go to bed. Yeah, somebody's got to take charge of Donald Trump and not let him post it at the late hours of a Sunday night. You can see the sort of, again, conspiracy theories, Dave, right? Whenever there's anything to do with Joe Biden, it's his incompetence and who is really running the administration. And then Trump just jumps on these things and goes wild with them, right? And so after his rant, one, people said, no, you can't rescind his pardons. And that wouldn't make any sense, right? It wouldn't make any sense. And then they've kind of said, like, we're not going to try to do that. But it's sort of this constant, doubt and like a target. The election's over. Like Joe Biden's retired. He's done. He's not running for office again. But the continued effort of this sort of MAGA enthusiast to just, Biden, 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 like it's done. It's done, right? And so again, we're trying to make conspiracies where conspiracies aren't. And the president's rant is wild. And some of the comments, from others, one post, whoever controlled the auto pen controlled the presidency, in all caps, right? And these come from sources that are saying, we're trying to uncover truth and restore accountability to government. And like we said, Dave, yeah, there's a place for that. There's a place for that for sure. Joe Biden didn't have a great administration, but like chill out, like just chill out, President Trump. And if you start going down the path of rescinding uh, pardons, like that opens up a whole can of worms for President Trump, on the other end of his presidency, if that day should ever come. So it's wild stuff. He needs to go to bed, Dave.
Yeah, yeah, he does. And I mean, all fun times. But you talked about it, some of that being walked back by his press secretary. Have you seen some of her like public comments?
Yeah, she's
Um,
terrible.
what's that?
She's terrible.
Yeah, she's terrible. Caroline Levitt. I mean, she's like, I mean, I guess if you want somebody to just blindly follow,
Yeah,
like the she is it, and she goes at it with vigor, and she goes at it with enthusiasm, and she takes on the personality of the president. But man, is she dumb. I mean, and look, I don't like I'm sure she's smart. She's she's capable, but like she sounds so dumb in these things. Do you think they walk back and go, "Hey, let's replay that press conference," kind of like a walking back like a football game and going, "Hey, where can we do better?" Do you think they do that at all?
I think the Trump administration thinks she's doing freaking great because she consistently supports whatever the president's saying and does. She does it enthusiastically, and even though sometimes she stumbles quite a bit and says things that are, very like people are looking at her like, "What are you talking about?" She's doing exactly what the president wants, right? She supports the intense flooding of the zone with shit, approach, right? There's so much coming at you, and she defends, denies, right? Continues to the storyline. That's what they want. Just block for the president, keep the president safe. She does it. She does it enthusiastically, Dave. She does her job. I don't know if she does it well by standards of a press secretary. She does it well for what the president wants her to do.
Yeah, I wonder if there was really. I guess that's fair, right? Like she does it enthusiastically. She's full of piss and vinegar. Like it seems like somewhat of an unpleasant person to be around on a day-to-day basis. I would think, but yeah, I'm amazed at that. Andy, another thing we kind of talked about is you mentioned like there's no way in hell. JD Vance is going to be the Well, like he will be. I want to capture what you were trying to say. He's not going to win the presidency in 2028.
Yeah.
He may very well be the nominee, but you made a statement there, and then immediately after that, almost like Axios is almost tapping into this podcast
Yeah.
here, but it basically wrote about how MAGA is getting behind the bulldog, JD Vance, and and pushing him up for the likely successor. Again, the vice president should be typically when the president leaves, the vice president should step into that, and it's assumed they'll win, but that doesn't always happen, of course. But
Yeah, a lot of vice presidents, secure the nomination following their time as vice president, but they don't necessarily have a great track record of winning because a lot of times people are kind of sick of that incumbent party, regardless of who it is. And it's just sort of like after 8 years, it feels like with Trump, feels like 20 years. People just want to change, who knows? I mean, the president's amassed a wild war chest. Somebody's going to be president. Maybe Trump wants to do a Putin. Putin stepped back from being the leader of Russia for a while, took the prime minister position, if I recall, and was still the puppet master. Maybe Trump envisions a role like that, where JD becomes Trump's president as much as America's president. I don't know. Who knows? There's still time, but I personally, Trump has the cult of personality type effect, right? People are just intoxicated with him, right? His supporters love him, and his detractors loathe him. He's just an incredibly divisive, polarizing figure. But his support is personal and deep. People like JD Vance, some of what he's done, but I don't think he has that level of charisma and appeal. And the country's so divided that I think it's really hard for him to actually win an election on the other end of things. But you know what, Dave? If we're wrong about everything, and if things are just splendid in 4 years, maybe he is a cakewalk. Who knows? But there is talk of him being sort of the heir apparent. Interesting to see.
yeah, the only thing I would counter on the Trump being the vice president to Vance's president, is he's fucking old now. I mean, like Trump is not a spring chicken. Putin back in those days, I
Yeah,
mean that was like 20 years ago. I think was Medvedev.
yeah, right. That's right.
Yeah, and yeah, he was a puppet, of course, of Putin, but I think he was a younger guy then. But it's fascinating to watch this. I mean, I was listening to another podcast, and yes, I do listen to a lot of podcasts, but they're just talking about like with Trump and versus the Bidens or the liberals, I think Trump's attraction comes from he says what's on his mind, and there's an
Yeah,
authentic, like, look, Trump really hates these people.
yeah,
Like everything he's railing against, he believes in ardently. And I think that's in this era of politics, it's been where everything is so scripted and orchestrated, and especially by the Democrats. Everything that they do is so like it's anticipated, right? But Trump is so authentic in that, even if you don't like it, I mean,
yeah.
his hate is real. I mean, he doesn't like these people.
Yeah,
So
no, you're right. I mean, he's not being secretive. Now he does lie, right? I mean, if you look,
yeah, oh, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
you go back to the campaign, right, and his, I don't know what 2025 is, and now we're fully implementing an intense pace, Project 2025,
yeah, yeah.
beyond the author's wildest imagination, if I recall the quote. So he lies. He definitely exaggerates, but he speaks his mind publicly via True Social, and every chance he gets in front of the camera, you know what you're getting, right? And I think you're right. I think part of his appeal, right, was the ability to go on to long, free form podcasts and just speak. And there is something for sort of accessibility and feeling like I know this guy. And Joe Biden wasn't that. He was sort of a standard politician. Kamala Harris tried to connect with people, but she was it was very controlled. She was very kept let's make sure we put her in front of the right audience and under these conditions. And there wasn't an authenticity to it that people felt like she's my person. Like I feel connected to her. I want to support her. People tried, but the enthusiasm gap was way off. You know what I mean? So you're right. I mean, there is a genuine appeal. We see that obviously the enduring presence of Donald Trump. I mean, He lost. He's back. America didn't forget him, and he's kept himself in front of the American people. There's something to that. Now, we might not like it, but the appeal aspect he does now. Other great authoritarian thugs also had great appeal and led their countries down disastrous paths, so they should be a lesson in that for us. But you're right. I mean, he's authentic. He authentically wants a third term and to be king of America. I mean, that's genuine.
Yeah, and I think it's the Democrats are still struggling with like an identity crisis. They're still struggling to understand who they really represent. I mean, because in the reality is, I mean, you've thought for a very long time since, the post-war World War II America is they fought for the working person. FDR, Truman, and a lot of those individuals, LBJ with civil rights movement, they were fighting for the everyday person, but they've become, the party of regulation and red tape and not and blocking things as opposed to putting together a vision of America that's thing. Trump, and again, whether we agree with it or not, I mean, Trump's vision: deregulate, allow things to grow,
Yeah,
and that look. People abuse that. That's why people put red tape in. That's why people put regulation in and
right.
oversight because people abuse that type of stuff. But there has to be a balance, and I think the Democrats for so long have become a party of no. And even now, it's like, what's the opposition 2.0 look like? It doesn't have to be opposition. It's like, what's your vision of America? And they don't have one. They still don't have one.
Yeah.
Um,
That's,
so,
I mean, you get two really important points. I mean, on regulation, like in spirit, like I'm 100% with like minimal regulation, let the market work. But you have to take that with reality, right? And any political theory or ideology on its own works in a utopian environment, right? In a utopian setting, it works, but in reality, none of them work. And so you've got to sort of adjust your political ideals to deal with reality. And so when you come to like, hey, we don't want any regulations, and then you look at the disaster of Flint, Michigan, and you're like, okay, we need some regulations. Like we need to take care of people, make sure that people aren't dying from dangerous pipes, right? You want a free market. I 100% want a free market. But then you look at crony capitalism and exactly what's going on right now with the White House, putting Teslas on the lawn. You're like, okay, that's not the free market, right? There's government manipulation. It's corrupting, and then capitalism looks bad. So we've got to sort of manage ideals with reality. But in our elections, because they're racist to the extremes, people don't want to accept reality. They just want to talk about the extreme position, how it should be. Hey, maybe that is how it should be, but that doesn't work in reality. And so there has to be reasonable compromise to find solutions that work, given the fact that people suck. And we don't do that very well. And for Democrats right now, they can't come to the table to have that conversation because they're floundering at an unbelievable level. I mean, a time when they've got charismatic leaders from governors to senators to Congress people. Like they've got charismatic leaders that can articulate a message, and they can't even fucking get on the same page on are we going to support the government funding or not. And it's not. I'm not like I personally. I think we said this. Like I think they should have kept the government open. I think that's the right thing to do. Maybe they could do it differently, but they can't even get on the same page within hours of talking and agreeing to things. It's just a mess. It's a mess, and so they're not even in opposition. They don't even have like their act together. It's a sad time for the Democratic Party. And Dave, I'll just say once again, binary politics got us into this mess, and binary politics will keep us in this mess. And if we're gonna, if the options are red and blue, Republican, Democrat, the cycle of extremism and ineptitude will just continue. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. And Trump's loving it because there's no one standing in his way right now. A divided, broken Democratic Party is not in opposition, and he's running down the field with blockers in front of him and no defense on the field. It's pathetic.
yeah, I mean, it has been very, and honestly, it doesn't even seem like there's a strategy for trying to get in place either. I mean, I think they're all very like Gavin Newsom's doing his own thing. He's hosting podcasts,
Yeah,
inviting like Steve Bannon on the podcast and such. And there's a lack of Schumer versus AOC. I mean, this is kind of stuff that is going on in that party, and there's no true self-reflection. I mean, I think that's the thing. I think even the Republicans look after Donald Trump after January 6th and Donald Trump lost, there was all this, we're gonna do this, and what they fall back into? They just fell back into the same old cycle.
yeah,
Where we need regulation and where we need some oversight is around around these political parties. But again, the elite control that on both sides, and they're not going to change what's beneficial for them. They want to hold on to that power. So
Yeah. That's why you
it's
got to break them, Dave. It's why the American people have to find a way to break them. And ultimately, America only works if citizens are engaged, right? That's why we talked about the protest, of the weekend. Like, it's so important for Americans to be involved in government in one way or another, right? Like voting, articulating your voice, supporting candidates, calling your Congress people, protesting if you want, doing something, running for office if you want. We have to be involved. If we don't get involved, democracy doesn't work, and we end up with the bullshit we have today, where it's about polarizing political parties running the show. And this isn't new. I mean, we've had divisive two-party politics essentially since George Washington retired from the White House, and it started during this term. But we have to break free of the clutches of these political parties because they're killing America. And we can't sustain this country in this mess, right? We have to open things up, and it's not going to happen. Like, the parties aren't going to give up their power. The American people have to demand it. Demand ballot access reform, demand more parties on the ballot, demand ranked choice voting, force change and better options and moderation in campaigns. Like, we can do it. We've got to get up off our asses, put down TikTok, and get involved. And I don't know if America really wants to.
But on TikTok, I can rant about it, Andy. I don't actually have to do anything about it.
I just want to see you do your dance. Just dance for me.
So. All right, Andy, we'll wrap up today for Wednesday, a sluggish Wednesday. Unfortunately, we didn't have more positive news. Andy, we'll probably talk a little bit about the NCAA tournament on Friday. Let's see about, like, why don't we come with like who our final four picks are? Who do you think that'll be? And then and then we can talk about some of the games. I just love that Thursday, Friday. Those games start at noon. It'll be a good time. So.
Did you fill out your bracket?
I have one I'm working on right now. So
All right. I'm ready to go. We can talk about our strategies there too if you want. So yeah, it's exciting to see that kick off, and yeah, it'll be fun. Dave, this was all national politics episode. Sometimes there's things to talk about, but just a reminder to all of us that there's a lot of fun, silly things happening out there too. So we'll come back to some other more fun topics too. But hey, it's Wednesday. Let's keep pushing through the week.
keep pushing through the week. We're over the hump. We're getting over that hump. So, all right, Andy, with that, I will catch up with you on Friday.